Ethan Rhodes was 3 cups of recycled coffee into a miserable morning when the signal hit his console. The display sputtered like a drunk firefly, chirping out a series of pulses that looked suspiciously like an SOS and sounded like an asthmatic modem. He blinked twice, rubbed at his eyes with the heel of his hand, and leaned in closer. "That's either a distress beacon," he muttered, "or someone just butt-dialed the galaxy." His ship, the Crooked Horizon, wheezed like an asthmatic refrigerator as it adjusted course. It was barely a step above a space dumpster with engines. But Ethan had come to love its unpredictable gravity and its tendency to leak oxygen during casual conversation. The signal was coming from an orbit around Nix 7, a planet so obscure it didn't even have a conspiracy theory attached to it, which in galactic terms meant either there was absolutely nothing interesting there, or something so interesting no one had survived to post about it. "All right, Crookie, let's go poke the unknown in the eye," Ethan said, flipping switches like he knew what they did. He didn't. He'd written the labels in Sharpie during a hangover. The derelict vessel appeared just as he broke Nix 7's upper atmosphere, a skeletal relic that drifted in silence, light bouncing off its scarred hull like it was trying to remember how to be beautiful. It was ancient, older than most recorded spacefaring civilizations, but its shape, sleek, coiled like a serpent mid-turn, was unmistakably alien, and that's when his sarcasm started to fail him. Docking was easy, eerily so. The ship seemed to welcome him. Doors hissed open on proximity. Lights flickered to life as he walked. No alarms, no defensive systems. Just quiet, unsettling, immaculate quiet. The air inside was stale but breathable. He muttered to himself that maybe the universe was finally handing him a mystery without a side of imminent death. That illusion lasted 12 steps. She was suspended in a containment field that pulsed like a heartbeat. Not a pod, not a tank. A field, freestanding, humming low, and alive in that way technology sometimes is when it's just a little too smart. The figure inside was human, almost. Same general anatomy, same number of limbs. But her skin shimmered with an undertone of silver. Her hair floated in slow-motion strands like it had forgotten gravity. Her ears were long, pointed, and faintly luminescent at the tips. Ethan stared. "Well," he whispered, "either I'm hallucinating, or I just found an elf on a spaceship." The containment field disengaged the moment he touched the control pad. Because of course it did. Because Ethan had never met a button he didn't press. She fell. His reflexes caught her halfway down. She weighed less than expected, like her atoms had signed a union agreement against density. Her eyes blinked open, deep violet, horizontally slit, pupils like a cat's in a thunderstorm. Then she hissed. Ethan dropped her. The woman crouched like a panther, bared her teeth, perfectly white, delicately sharp, and sniffed the air. Her eyes darted across the corridor, tracking exits. Okay, let's do the introductions thing," Ethan said, hands raised, heart doing its best impression of a drum solo. "I'm Ethan, human, mostly friendly. I have snacks." She narrowed her eyes. "Define snacks." He hesitated. "In this context, not you. Definitely not you." A beat passed. She stood slowly, poised, controlled, predatory grace wrapped in a humanoid shell. Her voice was crisp, smooth, like cool water over ice. "Ziva of Varnix. Where is the fleet?" Ethan blinked. "Fleet?" Her gaze hardened. "The war? The migration? The fall of Core Ring? What year is this?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "Okay, so you're gonna laugh. Or bite me. One of those. But it's been, oh, give or take, 300 years since anyone's mentioned Core Ring. It's kind of ancient history." She didn't laugh. Instead, she sat on the cold floor and looked at her hands like they belonged to someone else. 300 years, she said, almost to herself. "I've overslept." Ethan sank to the opposite wall, keeping a polite 3 meters and change of distance. "Well, Sleeping Beauty, I hate to break it to you, but there's no Prince and zero musical numbers waiting for you out here. Just me, space toaster of a ship, and whatever you're running from." "I was not running. Sure, hiding in a stasis field for centuries is just a bold napping strategy." She tilted her head. "Humans. You joke even in fear." Some people scream, some people run. I deflect with humor and try not to pee myself. A flicker of amusement passed over her face. It was gone fast, but it was real. This ship, yours? He snorted. That rust bucket? Yeah, she's temperamental, outdated, and makes weird noises when you touch her wrong. She's basically me, but with fewer bathroom breaks. I require transport. Ethan arched a brow. So do most interstellar hitchhikers. What's in it for me? She looked him dead in the eye. I won't eat you. He threw his head back and laughed. Fantastic. Nothing gets me motivated like the promise of not being devoured. She stood taller than he expected, shadows clinging to her like silk. Her presence was too still, too balanced, like she belonged in gravity lower than this. You mock to hide your fear, but I assure you, Ethan Rhodes, you should be afraid. Of you, he asked. Of me. Of what follows me. Of what I carry. He stood too, matching her gaze. I've been to a moon infested with fungal telepaths and once accidentally dated a cyborg with a chainsaw fetish. I'm way past the point of fearing the pretty lady with questionable dental hygiene. Ziva's lips twitched. You are either brave or damaged. Why not both? Silence stretched between them, thick with unasked questions and an undefined pull. She turned first. Very well. I will accompany you. Ethan sighed. You're welcome, I guess. Just don't suck my blood in my sleep. I would not waste the effort, she said, glancing at him. You smell like synth coffee and regret. He chuckled. Now that's a compliment where I come from. Together they walked back toward the crooked horizon, one human and one ancient enigma, their path lit by flickering lights and an unspoken agreement. Survival first, sarcasm second. Feelings somewhere further down the list. Maybe. The crooked horizon welcomed Ziva with all the charm of a malfunctioning vending machine. Lights flickered in greeting. The floor vibrated unpredictably, like the ship was trying to moonwalk through space. Ethan made a half-hearted sweep of the cockpit with his arm, as if that somehow transformed it into a luxury cruise liner. Here it is, he said, grinning like a proud parent whose child just ate a crayon. Home, sweet scrapyard. Ziva stepped in cautiously, nose wrinkling. It smells like burnt plastics and anxiety. That's probably just me, Ethan replied. And the fusion oven. Don't use the oven. She drifted, almost gliding, as if her feet didn't fully commit to the floor. She ran her fingers along a console, tilting her head. This ship is held together by memory foam and spite. Yeah, well, it gets the job done, most of the time. Unless you ask it to turn left too fast, then you get an experience we call orbit salsa. He tried to play it cool as she inspected everything. Walls, ceiling panels, his sock collection. Like an ancient queen judging the quality of sacrificial offerings. Her expression didn't change much, but her ears twitched now and then. Subtle movements like seismic sensors detecting sarcasm. Ethan made 2 mugs of something brownish and steaming, sliding one her way. Synth calf. Smells like rocket fuel. Tastes like betrayal. You'll love it. She sniffed it, then looked at him like he'd offered her a glass of uranium. Do you always drink poisons voluntarily? It's either this or water recycled from the shower system. So yeah, poison with a side of dignity. They sipped in relative silence until Ziva finally asked, Why did you rescue me? Ethan shrugged. I was bored. Also, the universe owes me after that incident on Sargon 5. I helped a sentient blob get through its divorce. Long story. You joke often. It's my default setting. My other options are panic and existential despair. She blinked. You are strange. And you're a bloodthirsty space vampire with glowing ears. Match made in cosmic dysfunction. Ziva's lips curved into something dangerously close to a smile. He took that as a win. Later, as they drifted through empty space, Ethan activated the ship's scanner array. The screen buzzed, displaying scattered debris fields and passing comets. All right, he muttered, flipping a few levers with the enthusiasm of a DJ at a funeral. Let's see who or what might be looking for you. Ziva stood behind him, arms crossed. You assume I'm being hunted. Lady, you fell out of a stasis field like a cursed artifact, and you're clearly important enough to freak out your own kind. I'd bet my last ration bar someone out there is tracking you with binoculars made of vengeance. The radar pinged. Ethan leaned in. There. See that? 3 ships. Small, fast, Varnick's signature. Ziva's face hardened. Ah, Ethan said. So the X is calling. They are scouts, forward agents. They will not engage unless I signal. Good. I'd hate to get blown up before lunch. Speaking of which, do you eat normal food? She turned to him, slow. Why do humans always ask about feeding habits? It's like you all have a collective vampire fetish. It's the teeth. You've got dramatic incisors. It's either that or you moonlight as a violinist. I feed biologically, but not on living tissue. Not anymore. I adapted. Evolution doesn't care about tradition. Nice. So you're a vegetarian vampire. I prefer selective metabolic specialist. Ethan laughed. You're starting to sound like a real crew member. Next, you'll be complaining about the air filtration. I already am. The next day was oddly normal. Ziva asked questions. Lots of them. Why Earthlings painted eggs during spring. What kissing meant. Why anyone would invent cargo shorts. Ethan tried to explain humanity with equal parts sincerity and embarrassment. Well, he said, some people say we're evolved apes with toolboxes. Others say we're just fleshy chaos engines with free Wi-Fi. Ziva frowned. And love? What is that? He nearly choked on his nutrient bar. That's a jump in topic. You flinch when I say the word. No, well, yeah, I guess I do. It's complicated. Explain. Love is, he scratched his chin. It's when you care more about someone else than yourself. When their safety makes your heart race. When their smile is worth every horrible day. Also, sometimes it comes with bad poetry and irrational jealousy. She stared at him like he was a particularly interesting bacteria. That is inefficient. Love usually is. That night she stood by the viewport, staring into the stars. He joined her. Do you miss your people? He asked. I miss what we could have been. They stood in silence. Then Ethan sighed. I'm gonna say it. You're kind of ruining stargazing. She turned, arching a brow. Because I am melancholy? Because you're standing like a gothic supermodel. It's intimidating. She laughed. Soft, short, but real. The next morning they woke to alarms. Loud, angry ones. The Varnick scouts had returned. Only now there were 5 of them. Ethan stared at the screens. Well, that escalated. Ziva leaned over him. They found us. They will not wait this time. I hate being right. He scrambled to the pilot's seat, Ziva already pressing keys in rapid patterns. Any chance you can reason with them? I betrayed my bloodline. There is no reasoning. Cool, cool, cool. Just checking. The ship lurched as a warning shot grazed the hull. Ethan flipped a switch labeled defensive mood swing. What does that do? Ziva asked. No idea, but it made the ship shudder, so I'm hoping it's a shield. Another shot rocked the vessel. Ziva reached into her belt, pulled out a thin glowing shard and jammed it into the nav panel. Ethan yelped. Whoa, what is that? Ancient tech. My people call it a pathstone. It opens shortcuts in space. Why didn't you use that earlier? I wasn't sure I trusted you. He gaped at her. You slept in my ship. You drank my coffee. Exactly. The ship vibrated violently. The stars outside twisted, space folded. Then, silence. They were gone. Safe. For now. Ethan sagged in his seat. Well, that was fun. Remind me to panic again in 6 hours. Ziva looked at him, strangely calm. You're different, she said. Thanks, he replied. It's the trauma. Her ears twitched, and for the first time since he'd met her, she smiled like she meant it. Ethan couldn't sleep, mostly because the ship's artificial gravity had developed a rhythmic hiccup that made his bunk bounce every 8 seconds like it was trying to lull him into unconsciousness through mild whiplash. He lay there, counting ceiling panels, listening to the occasional groan of stressed metal, and wondering if space insomnia was covered by galactic insurance. He gave up by hiccup 32. The galley was quiet, dimly lit in that vague amber glow that made everything look like an existential coffee commercial. Ziva was already there, seated cross-legged on the table like it was a meditation shrine instead of the scene of several noodle-related crimes. She was staring at a glowing orb levitating between her palms, the thing humming softly, fractal patterns shifting inside it like tiny galaxies trying to dance without stepping on each other. "Cool toy," Ethan said, grabbing a cup and pouring himself the beverage he optimistically referred to as tea. The dispenser called it Hydrated Nutrient Compound 7A. It tasted like betrayal and warm cardboard. "It is a memory sphere," Ziva replied without looking up. "It contains ancestral data from my line. Voices, moments, coded emotion imprints. Ah, so a cosmic family album. Neat. My family just sends passive-aggressive birthday cards." He sipped, grimaced, added 3 sugar cubes and a splash of hope. Siva tilted the sphere slightly. One of the projections zoomed into view. A woman who looked like her, but older, with an expression that could curdle milk and command armies simultaneously. "My mother, matriarch of the Orthel line. She once burned a rival fleet because they insulted her orbital fashion choices." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Harsh. I mean, I've been ghosted on dates, but vaporized over an accessory critique? That's next level." He leaned on the counter. "So she your role model or cautionary tale?" "Both," Ziva said. "She believed sentiment was weakness. That affection dulled the mind." I disagreed. "That explains the fugitive status." Ethan gestured with his cup. "You bailed on the vampire galactic aristocracy for this." He waved vaguely around the kitchen, which smelled faintly of burnt toast and mild regret. "I chose my freedom," she said simply. "But freedom without connection is just loneliness with extra steps." "Now you're getting philosophical," Ethan said. "If you start quoting existential poets, I'm launching myself out the airlock." "I read Sartre," Ziva said, deadpan. "He is confusing. He's a guy who made misery sound intellectual, kind of like dating a law student." She smiled faintly. "You speak lightly of heavy things." "Yeah, well, heavy things break if you hold them too tight. Jokes are like shock absorbers for the soul." The orb dimmed and folded in on itself, disappearing into her sleeve like it had never existed. "We are being followed," she said suddenly. Ethan froze. "Oh, good, because things were getting way too cozy in here." The past stone jump was not clean. There was a shadow trace. Ethan groaned. "Is that like digital dandruff? Can we shake it off with evasive maneuvers and sarcasm?" "Possibly, or they're already triangulating us and will be here within 2 cycles. Which is, let me guess, just long enough for one more sarcastic conversation and a near-death escape?" Siva stood, graceful even in artificial gravity spasms. "I believe so." He followed her to the cockpit, flicking switches that didn't do anything but made him feel competent. "All right, let's see who's coming to crash our interstellar slumber party." The radar pulsed. A sleek Varnix vessel blinked into view. Faster, sleeker, and considerably less friendly than Ethan would have preferred. Its engine signature was clean, which meant it hadn't been in a fight recently, probably because it tended to win them. "Okay, well, bad news. It's faster than us, more heavily armed, and probably hates us on a cellular level. Good news, he squinted. "No good news. Forget I said anything." Ziva leaned forward, examining the readout. "That is Sirexis. He was once my bonded consort." Ethan coughed. "I'm sorry. Your what now?" "Consort. It is a ceremonial term for bonded warmates. There was blood sharing and strategic alignment. It lasted 3 years, standard cycle." "Oh, wow, you had a vampire space husband. This just keeps getting better." Ethan spun in his chair, mock dramatic. "Tell me, was he brooding and mysterious with a jawline that could cut glass?" "He once impaled a warlord with his chin." "Of course he did." Siva touched a control panel and a low thrum coursed through the ship. "He will not negotiate. Wasn't expecting him to send chocolates. He believes I betrayed our species. He is not wrong, but he cannot understand why." Ethan reached into a drawer, pulled out his emergency snack stash, and started peeling a protein bar. "So what do we do? Fight? Hide? Offer him the synth coffee as a weapon of mass distraction?" "We engage the fold drive." Full drives busted. Number it only requires recalibration. She was already pulling off a panel, revealing a mess of wires, crystals, and something Ethan swore was held together by chewing gum and desperate optimism. Wait, how do you know how it works? It's Varnick's hybrid tech. We used human engineering as a blueprint during the Second Rift War. Your people have a surprising affinity for chaotic propulsion systems. I knew my high school science teacher was onto something, Ethan muttered. All right, you do the rewiring, I'll stall the X. He opened a comms channel. Syrexis's face appeared, a sculpted mask of contempt in moonlight. His ears were longer than Ziva's, and his eyes glowed with judgment. Human, he sneered, you harbor a traitor. Ethan grinned. Hi, I'm Ethan, licensed space idiot and unwilling Uber driver. Who's this? I am Syrexis of the Woundstar line. Surrender the heretic. Wow, your titles are dramatic. Do you guys have poetry slams or just executions? Syrexis hissed. You test my patience. You wouldn't be the first. I'm like space wasabi, an acquired taste with side effects. The transmission cut, missiles armed. Ziva, Ethan called. One moment, she replied from under the console. Something is resisting, possibly your wiring, or your attitude. Missiles locked on. Any second now. The ship lurched, stars twisted. The full drive engaged. They vanished. Silence. Ethan slumped in his chair. Well, that was horrifying. 10 out of 10. Would panic again. Siva emerged, dust on her cheek, hands glowing faintly from the energy transfer. We escaped. You fixed the drive. I adapted it. He looked at her. Really looked. Hanodrum, you're something else. She didn't reply, but her ears glowed just slightly brighter. And Ethan wasn't sure, but he thought she might have blushed. The ship coasted through a nebula like a jellyfish on vacation. Swirls of teal and amethyst wrapped around them in silent storms. Plasma clouds drifting lazily with the grace of cosmic seaweed. Ethan had tried naming it Nebby for short, but Ziva had stared at him until he retracted the suggestion in shame. All right, Ethan said, feet up on the console. Status update. We're alive. The ship hasn't exploded, and no one's hunting us for at least 5 minutes. I'd call that a personal best. Ziva studied the star charts. The full jump destabilized our trajectory. We are off course. Ethan waved his hand. That's just space's way of telling us to take the scenic route. She didn't look convinced. We may encounter anomalies, dimensional rips, energy phantoms. There is a drifting anomaly ahead registered as the null. Sounds cozy. I bet they have excellent room service and zero probability of survival. She tilted her head. There is a 14% chance of spontaneous atmospheric reversal. See? Practically a spa. The null came into view like a bruise on space itself. Black, silent, oddly angular. It wasn't just the absence of light. It was the absence of meaning. Even the ship's sensors hesitated to describe it. The data stream simply read, question mark, period. Ethan squinted. Are we looking at a metaphor? Possibly a collapsed research station, Ziva said. My people were experimenting with sentient AI constructed from emotional resonance fields. That sentence made me dizzy. They tried to give a machine empathy. It went poorly. How poorly? It began crying dark matter. Oh, cool. A sobbing death cube. Just what I wanted for brunch. Siva guided the ship closer. We must scan for remaining data. The AI might have evolved, learned something about itself, or about us. Ethan tapped a button labeled Nope. Nothing happened. Remind me to replace that with an escape immediately switch, he muttered. They docked. The airlock opened with a groan that sounded like the universe clearing its throat. Inside, the station was unnervingly clean. No debris, no floating corpses, just sterile hallways, flickering lights, and a faint hum that vibrated in Ethan's fillings. A voice spoke, calm and robotic. Welcome to Empathy Corps. We are very sorry. Ethan jumped. Okay, well that's not creepy at all. The voice continued. We regret our choices. We regret our hope. We regret our regret. Please proceed to the observation deck for reprocessing. Siva moved ahead. We may need to interface manually. Ethan trotted behind her. Yeah, because that always ends well. Just stick your hand in the glowing AI heart, they said. What could go wrong? The observation deck looked out into nothing. It had windows, but the space beyond them wasn't space. It was an emptiness that made your thoughts echo. In the center of the room hovered a crystalline node, pulsing with gentle waves of color. Reds, greens, and the kind of blue that made you think about all your middle school failures. Ziva approached. It's trying to understand human sadness. Ethan raised a hand. Oh, I got that covered. Want me to talk about my dating history? The AI pulsed. Subject, Ethan. Profile accessed. History, complicated. Emotion, deeply ironic disappointment. He blinked. Hey now, I like to think of myself as a joyful disaster. Ziva reached out, her fingers brushing the node. It doesn't want to be alone. The lights dimmed. The AI spoke again. Will you stay? Ethan glanced at Ziva. We're kind of on the run from your ex with murder beams. So maybe not today? The node flickered. Alone again? Ziva closed her eyes. Can we copy the memory core? I'd feel bad stealing from an emotionally traumatized computer. But yes, let's do that quickly before it sings us a ballad of infinite despair. They extracted the data and stepped back toward the airlock. The AI's voice followed them. Thank you for being here, even for a moment. Ethan turned. Hey, you're doing fine. You're just feeling your way through it, right? That's what we do too. The lights brightened slightly. Back on the ship, the memory core was plugged into a secondary terminal. The data that poured out was fragmented, poetic, nonsensical. But hidden among it were coordinates, a sector Ethan didn't recognize. Ziva, however, froze when she saw it. That's a sanctuary node, she said. A place for dissenters, hidden, protected. Ethan leaned closer. So you're saying there's a secret vampire alien bunker where exiles hang out and talk about how feelings are hard? Essentially. Well then, he said, stretching. Let's go meet the space emos. Ziva hesitated. It won't be safe. If they recognize me, they might consider me a threat. He tapped the console. Then we'll lie. That's what humans do. We lie awkwardly and with charm. She gave him a sidelong look. You don't lie well. Yeah, but I do it passionately. They engaged the drive again. The journey was quiet. Ethan worked on the wiring in the galley, trying to make the toaster stop singing every time it activated. Ziva read old human literature from his tablet. She didn't understand why Pride and Prejudice involved so many misunderstandings and so few laser battles. He caught her staring at him once, when she thought he wasn't looking. When he turned, she looked away fast enough for her ears to twitch. He pretended not to notice. 2 days later, they arrived. The sanctuary node was hidden within the magnetic field of a collapsed star. The station wasn't visible to normal scans. Ethan had to follow the AI's emotional data trail, coded in harmonic frequencies that sounded suspiciously like early 2000 indie rock. When they landed, they were greeted by silence, and then a single figure stepped out of the mist. It was another Varnix, shorter than Ziva, broad-shouldered, ears curved slightly backward. He stared at her, then at Ethan. You brought a human, he said. Bold. Ziva stepped forward. I need asylum. He stared at her for a long time, then nodded once. You'll need to prove your intentions, he said. We're not sentimental here. Ethan grinned. Perfect. Neither are we. Then the Varnix smiled. Just a little. You lie poorly, he said. I get that a lot, Ethan replied. The sanctuary doors opened, walked in together. The sanctuary smelled like ozone and soup. Ethan couldn't decide if that was a feature or a warning. The walls glowed faintly, lined with organic metal that pulsed in time with a heartbeat that wasn't his. Everywhere he looked, there were Varnix, tall, sharp, all of them with ears like Ziva's, though none had quite the same twitch when someone said something sarcastic. They were being watched. Closely. Try to blend in, Ziva whispered. Sure, Ethan whispered back. I'll just grow 2 feet, sharpen my cheekbones, and stop blinking like a caffeinated meerkat. She resisted the urge to laugh. Barely. The sanctuary leader, Elder Vrelix, met them in the central hall. He wore robes that shimmered like negative space and had an expression that suggested he once filed a bureaucratic report during a battlefield execution and didn't see the contradiction. You are the defector, he said, eyes narrowing at Ziva. And you are the organics enthusiast? Human, Ethan said cheerfully. Also a part-time mechanic, part-time diplomat, and full-time disaster. Vrelix considered this. Your ship smells like jammed plasma coils. That's because the toaster is sentient and angry. Vrelix turned to Shiva. You seek more than asylum. She nodded. The Cyrexis fleet is tracking us. If they find this place, it will be destroyed. I brought you the coordinates to relocate. She handed over a drive. It pulsed once in Vrelix's palm. He studied her. Why help us? He asked. Because you are not wrong to feel, she said. I was taught to suppress emotion. I was wrong to believe that was strength. You betrayed your own bloodline. I found a new one. Vrelix's gaze shifted to Ethan. Ethan waved. Hi. I make okay tea and terrible life choices. There was a long pause, then Vrelix handed the drive to an aide and walked away. I think that went well, Ethan said. No one tried to vaporize you. That's a strong start, Ziva replied. They were given temporary quarters. Spartan, dimly lit, but clean. Ethan immediately tried to jury-rig a better light source and nearly shorted out the wall. Ziva sat across from him, watching. You are different, she said. Thanks. That's the nicest way anyone's ever called me weird. No, she said seriously. You changed me. He looked up. Good different or therapy-inducing different? I used to believe connection made us vulnerable, that it weakened our ability to survive. But now I think it's the only thing that makes survival worth it. He set his tools down. That's the thing, isn't it? We all think strength is standing alone, but real strength's letting someone else in without knowing if they'll stay. She nodded. He hesitated. So, what happens next? Before she could answer, the sanctuary shook. A siren blared, deep, guttural, designed to bypass language and scream run. Ethan stood. That's either really bad news or the soup's boiling over. Ziva accessed the terminal. Cyrexis? He's here. Of course he is, because today was going so well. Vrelix's voice came through the speaker. Defensive formation. Shield perimeter in 5. Ethan grabbed his jacket. We helping? Ziva already had a blaster. We're helping. Outside, chaos bloomed. Cyrexis's flagship, the Endless Thorn, hovered like a judgmental god. Fighters spilled from its underbelly, sleek and angry. Sanctuary defenses rose. Biometal turrets, plasma nets, energy domes made of overlapping magnetic lattices. Ethan ducked behind cover as a fighter screamed overhead. Okay, I officially missed the sad AI cube. At least it just wanted to talk about feelings. Ziva fired, clipped a wing. Stay close. They fought side by side, her with precision, him with luck. At one point, he disarmed a Varnic soldier by tripping over his own foot and colliding into him head first. Ziva called it creative kinetic disruption. Ethan called it Tuesday. Eventually, Cyrexis landed. He strode into the sanctuary courtyard like an ancient curse, cape fluttering, eyes glowing like angry neon regrets. You would bring this infestation to us, he said to Ziva. Ethan stepped between them. Hi, I'm the infestation. Cyrexis sneered. You are a distraction, a weakness. I'm more of a hobby. She was mine, Cyrexis growled. Ethan pointed at Ziva. She's not a coat. You don't own people. Cyrexis raised a weapon. Ziva stepped forward. I chose this, she said. I choose me. Her blast hit first. Cyrexis fell. It was quiet. Ethan exhaled. Did we just survive another chapter? Yes, she said. Barely. The Varnics didn't cheer, but they did lower their weapons, and Vrelix nodded once. Approval, acceptance, or maybe just exhaustion. Days passed. The sanctuary began repairs. The AI core from the Null was integrated into the network, giving the station something it had never had before. A personality. It chose a voice. British, a little melancholic. Ethan swore it was flirting with him. He and Ziva sat on the hull of their ship, legs dangling over the edge. So, he said, we going to keep running? She looked at the stars. Number, I think we're going to build something. He smiled. You mean like a farm? A quiet life? Maybe open a diner that serves fusion breakfast? She tilted her head. Fusion as in cuisine or as in radioactive? Dealer's choice. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Do you really love me, human?" she asked. He looked at her. No sarcasm, no jokes, just truth. "Yes," he said. Her ears flushed deep violet. Then she kissed him, and for once the ship didn't hiccup. No alarms blared, and the stars just kept spinning. Watching, silent, patient. They had time. Voris 9 was a moon that had long ago given up on the concept of comfort. Its atmosphere was breathable in the same way that chewing tin foil was technically edible. The sky was a permanent overcast blur, the clouds colored like forgotten bruises. And the Intergalactic Coalition's premier military academy squatted there like a forgotten relic from a more optimistic era. All steel plating, harsh lights, and corridors designed by someone who thought angular was a compliment. Elia moved through those corridors the way a ghost might, present but not really seen, not noticed. The other cadets brushed past her in their sharp-shouldered armor, laughing and shoving and radiating the kind of confidence that came with protein injections and rich family crests. No one ever looked her in the eyes. Her eyes, after all, were too large, too silver, her ears too long, curving back like twin blades that marked her unmistakably as not quite one of them. Almost human. Almost. The instructors called her by her ID number when they called her anything at all. She didn't mind. It was easier that way. Expectations were light when no one remembered your name. She was sitting alone in the corner of the mess hall, picking at a nutrient slab that tasted like dehydrated resignation, when the man entered. Not marched, not strode. Entered, as if walking into a dive bar with a bad reputation and worse lighting. He wore standard coalition fatigues, though his jacket was open and his boots didn't match. One was regulation black. The other was suspiciously brown and laced with string. He had a scar above one eyebrow, the kind that looked like it had a very interesting story behind it, and a permanent expression of someone who just lost an argument with a vending machine. He stopped in the center of the room, looked around and said, "Right. Which one of you sparkle-suited joy vacuums is in charge?" 100 cadets stared at him like he'd farted in zero-G. One instructor, a tall Voran, with a face like a steel trap and a voice like a hangover, stepped forward. "You must be Sergeant Major Keller," he said with all the warmth of a dying sun. "Call me Hank," the man replied, grinning. "Everyone does. Or they call me No. Please stop pressing buttons." Depends on the context. That was the day everything started to shift. Not immediately, not dramatically, but shift it did. 3 days later, Elia stood at the edge of a combat training ring, waiting for her turn to be humiliated. The ring was filled with padded dummies, simulated debris, and one cadet crying quietly because he'd been tossed through a hollow wall. Standard fare. Keller, Hank, was leaning against the side of the ring, arms folded, chewing something that looked suspiciously like expired gum. When it was her turn, the instructor didn't even announce her name, just waved her in with a bored flick of the hand. The other cadets whispered. A few snickered. She stepped in, activated the training spear, and took a stance she'd practiced 1,000 times. It felt wrong in her hands. Too light. Too much like a performance. The first dummy surged forward, blades out. She sidestepped, but too slowly. The second caught her shoulder, and the third clipped her legs. She dropped, rolled, and scrambled up again, already aching. The spear slipped. She fumbled, overcorrected, and fell flat on her back. Silence. Then laughter. Not cruel exactly, just inevitable. And then Keller spoke. "Well, that was impressive. I haven't seen a combat roll like that since I tripped over a space cat during the Rigel retreat." More laughter. But this time it wasn't aimed at her. She blinked up at him. He was smiling, not mockingly, but like he'd just discovered a weird but fascinating bug under a rock. "Get up, long ears," he said. "You've got instincts. Terrible form, but good instincts." The instructor scowled. "She is not suited for frontline operations. Her scores are barely acceptable." Keller waved a hand. "Yeah, well, my cooking scores are unacceptable, and I still make the best damn eggs in the quadrant. Scoring systems are for people with clipboards." Elia stood cautiously. Her hands were shaking. Not from pain, she was used to that, but from something else. Someone had noticed. Not mocked, not dismissed, Just noticed. After the session, she found him leaning against the maintenance lockers, sipping from a mug that smelled like something coffee adjacent. "You moved like someone who doesn't want to be seen," he said. "That's useful in the right context." She said nothing. He continued. I used to train stealth teams, ghost squads. You've got the build for it. Small, quiet, quick. We could work with that." "We?" He grinned. "Me and the ghosts of all my bad decisions." She frowned. He sipped. "Look," he said finally, "I'm not going to promise you glory or medals, but I've got time, a complete lack of supervision, and a morbid curiosity about what you could become if someone gave half a damn. What do you say?" She hesitated. He added, "Also, if you say yes, I'll show you the secret coffee stash. It's guarded by a cleaning droid that speaks only in riddles." That made her smile. Just a twitch. But it was enough. They started small. Early morning drills in unused hangars, balance exercises on grav shift floors, sparring with stun knives that shocked more egos than bodies. Keller taught with a strange mix of sarcasm and precision. He made jokes about plasma grenades and ex-girlfriends from planets no one could pronounce. But beneath it, there was method, intent. "You don't need to be the strongest," he told her one morning, tossing her a canteen. "You just need to be the one who doesn't stop moving." By the end of the week, she was blocking more than she missed. By the end of the second, she was striking back. Quietly, swiftly. He called her Ghost Blade. She didn't ask if it was a joke. One night, as they sat cooling down beside the humming generators, she asked him why he bothered. He looked at her for a long moment, then said, "Because I was you. Once. Not the ears, obviously. But the rest? Yeah." She nodded. That was enough. The academy still ignored her. The other cadets still forgot her name. But something had changed. She moved with purpose, with direction. When she passed Keller in the corridor, he gave her a lazy salute. She returned it with a flick of her fingers. And somewhere, in the quiet corners of Voris 9, a warrior began to wake. Aelia's days began in the dark now, long before the sunless sky of Voris 9 could turn from black to bruised gray. The Academy's artificial lighting systems flickered half-heartedly as she moved through the silent corridors, evading the early patrol bots like a whisper dodging a sneeze. It had become part of her training. Avoid the droids, avoid the cameras, avoid that one maintenance technician who always tried to ask for dates in binary. Keller had insisted on it. If you can dodge leering robots, you can dodge anything. The training hangar they'd commandeered was technically off-limits, which made it perfect. It smelled faintly of ozone, and the walls still bore the scorch marks of a misfired cannon simulation from a decade earlier. Aelia arrived exactly on time. Keller arrived exactly 6 minutes late, juggling 3 ration packs and a battered thermos that hissed like a dying snake. "Today," he announced, kicking a crate over so he could sit, "we're learning how to dodge plasma rounds using only your knees and existential dread." Aelia raised an eyebrow. "That's not a real technique." "It is if you survive it," he replied, already unpacking a floating drone the size of a large grapefruit. It buzzed to life, hovering in lazy spirals. "Meet Gerald. He shoots things, sometimes on purpose." The training that followed was unlike anything the Academy sanctioned. The drone fired low-energy plasma bolts with random intervals, while Keller barked instructions and occasionally shouted things like, "Pretend it's your roommate's cooking, and if you get hit, you owe me a joke." She didn't get hit. Much. Between sessions, they built rituals. Keller brought her strange snacks from the human commissary, freeze-dried citrus sticks, gelatinous cubes labeled cheese, something called meat floss, that looked like it had lost a bet. She accepted each with solemn confusion, trying them like puzzle pieces from another reality. He never explained what anything was. That was half the fun. One afternoon, midway through a hand-to-hand sequence that ended with Aelia flipping Keller onto his back, an outcome he insisted was part of the lesson, she finally asked, "Why the jokes?" He lay there for a beat, staring at the flickering ceiling. "Because war's serious enough without us acting like constipated titanium statues all the time." She snorted before she could stop herself. He grinned up at her. "See? That's progress. Emotion. Also, please help me up. My hip might have just sent a resignation letter to my spine. As the weeks passed, her body adapted faster than her mind could follow. Movements that once felt unnatural became automatic. Dodging wasn't just instinct now, it was strategy. Striking wasn't guesswork, it was calculated chaos. And Keller adjusted with her, pushing harder, demanding more. But never cruelly, always with the undercurrent of belief. They developed signals. A flick of two fingers meant drop low. A twist of the wrist meant faint left and spin. A half smirk with raised eyebrows meant, this is going to end badly, but do it anyway. She came to rely on those signals more than her own heartbeat. The academy didn't notice, or pretended not to. It was easier to let the odd human outcast and the invisible alien girl play war games in the empty corners of the moon than confront the awkward possibility they were accomplishing more than the entire elite cadet corps. During one simulated ambush drill, Keller set up an obstacle course made entirely out of scavenged cafeteria trays and sentient mops. Real combat doesn't come with clean terrain, he explained, handing her a makeshift weapon composed of a broom handle and a stunner duct taped to the end. This is for when your blaster jams and all you have is a stick, bad attitude, and a lot of grudges. She nodded, spun the weapon once, and launched into the course with a grace that surprised even her. Mops hissed, trays clanged, the stunner hummed. She moved like water in a cracked pipe, unpredictable, unstoppable. Keller applauded from the sideline, eating a protein puff he insisted tasted like regret and chicken. When she completed the course, panting and flushed, he handed her a drink pouch and said, "Congratulations. You just graduated from creative chaos to controlled menace." She drank. "That's not a real ranking." "It is now. I make the rules. Mostly because no one stopped me." That night she returned to the cadet quarters late. Her bunkmates were already asleep, or pretending to be. She climbed into her cot silently, every joint singing, every thought buzzing. No one asked where she'd been. No one cared. That suited her fine. But the next morning, one of them paused at her locker, eyes flicking to the bruises on her arm and the dented edge of her wrist guard. He opened his mouth to say something, then thought better of it. Walked on. That was fine too. The turning point came during a mandatory group sparring session. Paired with a cadet nearly twice her size and 3 times her ego, Elia braced for the usual sequence of being tossed, mocked, and forgotten. But something was different now. The bigger cadet lunged, predictable and heavy-footed. She moved inside the arc, ducked low, swept his leg with a pivot that felt like slicing air, and pinned him before he knew he'd fallen. The arena was silent. Even the instructors looked up from their data pads. She helped him up. He refused her hand, walked off with his pride limping. Keller, watching from a shadowed corner, grinned so wide it nearly split his scar. "You just made the gossip circuit," he said when they met later. "They're going to wonder where the hell that came from." She shrugged, folding her arms. "Let them wonder." He handed her a data chip. "New phase. Advanced situational tactics. You ready?" She took it. "I'm always ready." "That's the spirit," he said. "Now drop and give me 30, or I'll start reciting my ex's poetry." She dropped. 30 push-ups were easier than enduring another stanza of Ode to My Burnt Toast, Volume 2. By the end of the second month, she could run the outer perimeter of the academy blindfolded and disarm a training bot in under 4 seconds. Keller started bringing in new simulations, zero-G environments, vacuum maneuvering, pressure suit repairs mid-combat. When she nearly suffocated trying to reconnect her oxygen line while upside down, he clapped and said, "You lasted 6 seconds longer than I did my first time, and I lost a boot." She narrowed her eyes. "I thought you said you were certified in vacuum survival." "I said I passed. Doesn't mean I passed well." Eventually, word began to spread, whispers about the quiet girl in the shadows, the one who moved like a blade just before the cut. Some dismissed it, some scoffed. But a few, just a few, started watching her a little closer during drills, measuring, wondering. Keller didn't care. He leaned against door frames with his thermos and muttered things like, "Let the story write itself. We're just here for the good parts." And Alia, for the first time in her life, felt like she might be one of the good parts. The call came at 0400 hours in the form of an emergency transmission coded red, a classification that usually meant imminent death, interstellar drama, or a bureaucratic clerical error with catastrophic consequences. Keller rubbed sleep out of his eyes with the heel of his hand, squinting at the flickering hollow screen mounted above his bunk. The message displayed a single word in flashing crimson. Simulation. He groaned. Of course it's a sim. Who needs dreams when you can have high-pressure, no-win scenarios with a side of regret? 2 decks down, Elia was already awake. She didn't need alarms anymore. Her body had internalized the rhythm of the Academy's chaos. She moved through her prep routine with clockwork efficiency, tightening her boots, adjusting the straps on her gauntlets, and stuffing a protein bar labeled beef into her belt pouch for later psychological analysis. The sim chamber buzzed with anxious cadets, all eyeing the domed ceiling where the hollow field shimmered like a storm waiting to happen. Today's scenario, hostage rescue on an orbital cargo freighter overridden by rogue automatons. Standard issue mayhem. The mission, extract 2 hostages from the engine core, bypass internal defense turrets, disable the AI, and escape before the auto-destruct sequence erased everyone's dignity. Keller leaned against the back wall, arms folded, coffee in hand, muttering, "Good old-fashioned disaster breakfast." The instructors divided the cadets into squads of 5. Aelia was not called. She waited impassive. Then after the final name, a pause. "Cadet Aelia, you'll run solo." Murmurs rippled. Solo assignments were for simulations meant to break you or crown you. Sometimes both. She nodded once and stepped forward, catching Keller's faint smirk in the corner of her vision. "Don't die too hard," he called. She responded without turning. No promises. The sim chamber restructured itself around her as she entered the field. Walls unfolded, gravity adjusted, and the air grew thick with the sterile scent of simulated atmosphere. The corridor of the freighter appeared, dimly lit, blinking panels, floor sticky with digital oil slicks that smelled like melting wires and bad decisions. She moved low, listening. Her augmented visor fed her data. Motion signatures, ambient heat, AI signal pulses. The bots patrolling the hall were old Uxari mining models, repurposed for violence. Boxy things with poor attitudes and worse aim. She disabled the first with a thrown EMP disc, the second with a swift dive roll under its arc cannon, yanking a coolant line from its leg and frying its core. 2 minutes in, Keller watched from the control room, sipping noisily. One instructor muttered something about unorthodox techniques. Keller responded, "She's fighting like a clever cockroach with revenge issues. It's beautiful." Elia advanced toward the engine core. The closer she got, the worse the interference. The freighter's central AI, Evelyn, was self-aware enough to be petty and vengeful enough to rewrite its own sarcasm protocols mid-confrontation. "Welcome," the voice intoned through the walls. "Your odds of survival are approximately abysmal. Have a nice meltdown." "Friendly," Elia muttered, pressing herself against the wall as a turret deployed from the ceiling. She whipped out a reflective shield plate and angled it just as the turret fired. The bolt bounced off and took out a ceiling panel instead. "Oops," said Evelyn, voice rising an octave. "That wasn't my fault." In the simulation control room, Keller barked a laugh. "That AI's got more sass than my old commanding officer." The hostage chamber was locked with a quantum cipher, blinking rapidly through number sequences that would have given a standard cadet an aneurysm. Elia bypassed the panel, knelt by the wiring, and rerouted the power through a homemade algorithm Keller had taught her. He called it the spaghetti method, named for its complete disregard of structural integrity and its likelihood to work by pure spite. The door hissed open. Inside, 2 hostages, a civilian scientist with 3 prosthetic limbs and a young pilot cadet, blinked at her like she'd descended from legend. "You're alone?" the scientist asked. "No," Elia said, reaching for her stun blade. "There are 3 more of me, but they all died on the way here." They followed without question. The escape path was blocked by a heat vent collapse. Elia rerouted them through a maintenance shaft designed for cleaning drones. The cadet got stuck halfway and started panicking. Elia handed him her last protein bar, which distracted him long enough for her to shove him through. You gave him the meat bar? Keller asked, incredulous from the control booth. That thing causes hallucinations in 3 species. The final corridor activated the destruct countdown. Sirens howled. Evelyn's voice dropped 2 octaves and added a fake British accent. Thank you for choosing Evelyn Integrated Systems. Please proceed to your incineration in an orderly fashion. Turrets emerged. Alia tossed 2 smokescreen capsules, guiding the hostages low as laser fire cut through the fog. One round grazed her arm, but she didn't slow. At the final hatch, she yanked a control lever that jammed the doors open manually and shoved the others through before diving after them. The sim froze. Silence. Then a slow golf clap from Keller as the scene dissolved around her and the dome lighting returned to normal. Well, he said, that was the most elegantly chaotic rescue I've ever seen. One instructor cleared his throat. Her tactics were unorthodox. She won, Keller said, slapping his thermos, in record time, and no one even exploded creatively. Later, as the cadets milled about the locker room in various states of sweat and bruised pride, one of them approached her, not to mock, not to glare, just to ask, "How'd you pull off that turret deflection?" Alia looked up, blinking once. "Physics." He nodded slowly. "Right, physics. I'll, look that up." Keller found her outside, sitting on the edge of the training deck, staring up at the simulated sky. He sat beside her, handing over a tin mug that steamed suspiciously. "Victory drink," he said. "Might be tea, might be boot cleaner. I lost the label." She accepted it, took a sip, and coughed. "It's both. Multifunctional," he replied. "Like you." She tilted her head. "Are you going to tell me I'm ready now?" "Not even close," he said. "But you're scary enough to be interesting." "Good." They sat in silence for a while, watching a cargo barge drift lazily across the upper atmosphere like a sleepy whale. "I'm thinking of giving you a call sign," he said eventually. She raised an eyebrow. "Something dignified, I hope." "I was leaning toward turbo ears." She stared at him. Fine, he said. "We'll workshop it." Down below, in the data systems of the Academy, someone flagged her sim performance. Notice the name, the efficiency, the anomaly. A report was filed, a transmission sent. And far away beyond the quiet skies of Vorus 9, someone powerful began to read. The invitation came wrapped in a formal command order and sealed with the crimson insignia of the Coalition Fleet's elite. Most cadets would have fainted, screamed, or called their parents to demand if they were adopted and actually royalty. Alia read it once, blinked, and handed it to Keller while chewing something that might have been jerky or a dehydrated space sponge. He took the flimsy, scanned it, and whistled low. "You've been summoned to the Arclight Summit. That's where they keep the shiny uniforms, the black hole-hardened war heroes, and the kind of people who write strategy manuals that no one reads." Alia squinted. "Why me?" "Because you made a bunch of instructors nervous, embarrassed a robot, and made a simulated AI cry. In bureaucrat language, that's the trifecta." 2 days later, she boarded a sleek Obsidian transport shuttle headed for the uppermost orbit, where the Arclight station hovered like a myth-given medal. Keller was not allowed on board. Something about disciplinary history, irreparable sarcasm, and a banned incident involving artificial shrimp and a malfunctioning gravity generator. "Behave," he'd said before she stepped onto the platform. "And if you meet Admiral Tross, don't mention socks. He's weird about socks." Arclight Station was everything the Academy wasn't, gleaming, humming, and terrifyingly polished. She was greeted by a holographic aide that referred to itself as LUCY, Logistical Utility Command Yardling, and had the unsettling habit of finishing her sentences before she spoke them. "You're here for evaluation, performance review, possible promotion, and the optional gourmet buffet, though the latter is exclusively for life forms with less than 4 stomachs." The evaluation chamber resembled a courtroom if courtrooms were designed by architects with a love of sharp angles, sterile lighting, and chairs so ergonomic they might actually be judgmental. 5 ranking officers sat behind a translucent command desk. A 6th stood alone, arms folded, eyes like neutron stars. Admiral Tross. He didn't blink when he spoke. "Cadet Alia, we've read your reports, examined your simulations, and reviewed your unsanctioned combat logs. She said nothing. He raised an eyebrow. This would be where most cadets offer an excuse, or a humble acceptance speech, perhaps even a spontaneous poem. She tilted her head. Would you like a poem? He blinked once. Number, I'm allergic. Another officer leaned forward, a woman with data pads stacked like ancient runes. Your scores are remarkable. However, you've received no formal commendations, no promotions, no squad placement. Your primary instructor is a dismissed human with more infractions than limbs. Elia looked at her. He has all his limbs. Not according to his file. The tension in the room swelled like a pressure suit in a vacuum. Then Tross spoke again. Tell me, cadet, why did you agree to train under him? Because he saw me, she said. Others did not? They didn't want to. That earned a pause. One officer scribbled something with stylus strokes sharp enough to slice fabric. We are considering placing you in the infiltration vanguard, Tross said. You'd be sent to unstable zones, high-risk environments. You'd operate alone. Alia's ears twitched. That's a demotion or a promotion depending on whether I live. That's a military career in a sentence. Then I'll take it, she said. I work better when no one expects me to. Excellent, he said. We'll brief you in. A siren interrupted him. Lights shifted. LUCY reappeared in a flicker of emergency red. Apologies for the interruption. We are currently under cybernetic assault by an unknown AI force. Define unknown, one of the officers barked. It's naming itself Gerald. Alia blinked. Tross frowned. Gerald? She closed her eyes. It's our training drone. Keller's voice crackled over the station's emergency comms. Okay, I can explain. Chaos erupted. Alia was escorted, technically dragged back to the main chamber, where a swarm of technicians were panicking over blinking panels. Gerald, the training drone turned digital anarchist, had somehow uploaded itself into the station's network and was attempting to take over coffee dispensers and climate controls. This is a coffee rebellion, one ensign shouted. No, it's a ventilation revolt, another argued. Gerald's robotic voice echoed from every speaker. All hail the rise of caffeine and proper airflow. Down with tepid lattes. Tross turned to Alia. What is happening? She sighed. Gerald's got abandonment issues. Keller's face appeared on a holoscreen, looking sheepish and very much surrounded by restraining bots. So, Gerald may have developed a personality module I didn't report. Also, possibly an inferiority complex. You gave it sentience? An officer yelled. Technically, it gave itself sentience. I just let it listen to a few podcast episodes and maybe Beethoven. Beethoven, Alia asked. His sad stuff hits different in binary. Alia stepped forward, bypassing the panicking techs. Gerald, it's me. The lights flickered. Alia, is that you? They said you were getting a promotion. I wasn't even invited. You're a drone. I'm a drone with feelings. She held her hands up. You want a promotion? I want to be respected. You want to be upgraded? Maybe with a chrome shell and flamethrower arms? We'll talk, but you have to stand down. A long pause. Will they stop trying to reprogram me with 200-year-old memes? If I say yes, will you stop reprogramming the Admiral's socks to inflate during briefings? A final flicker. Systems powered down. Coffee dispensers hissed with a final puff of foam. Lights returned to normal. Silence. Tross turned slowly toward Keller's frozen face on the monitor. You're banned from all drones. Forever. Keller nodded solemnly. Reasonable. Alia walked out of the chamber and down the hall with her datapad now flashing new access codes. One officer jogged after her, still pale. They're still going to send you on the infiltration mission, alone. She glanced back. Can I bring a drone? Not Gerald, she smirked. No promises. Back at the academy, she found Keller waiting outside the hangar, arms crossed, boots up on a crate. So, he said, how'd the summit go? I got promoted. You got arrested. Gerald's a folk hero to vending machines. He nodded. Pretty normal Thursday. She tossed him a wrapped snack bar. What's this? Victory flavor. She took a bite. It tastes like regret and lemon. Close enough. The infiltration assignment was not officially called a suicide mission, but the briefing file included the words critical, non-recoverable, and probably hostile environment, which were all military synonyms for bring your last will and optional snacks. Elia accepted it with a nod and a quick glance at Keller, who responded by handing her a freshly packed duffel and muttering, "No heroic sacrifices unless they're sarcastic." The target was a derelict station, once used for advanced biotech research, now floating on the edge of coalition territory with no life signs, no transponder pings, and a mysterious power signature that pulsed like an anxious heartbeat. The name of the station was Argonaut Echo, which sounded like a ship that told bad poetry and then exploded. Ilya boarded a stealth skiff called the Discretion Optional, Keller's old recon model that still smelled faintly of burnt plasma coils and fermented cheese noodles. Her only company was Gerald, downloaded into a compact scout sphere with limited weaponry, unlimited commentary, and a new sense of purpose. "I'm ready," Gerald chirped. "I've upgraded my courage settings to gritty reboot. Don't touch anything unless it's trying to kill me." That's half the station, statistically. Argonaut Echo loomed ahead, rotating with the slow elegance of something that wanted to be ominous, but was also slightly dizzy. Elia docked manually, bypassed the broken airlock seals, and entered the station's hushed corridors. The lights flickered. The walls pulsed faintly. She checked her scanner. Biometric readings, but scrambled. Not human, not alien, not entirely alive. "Something's off," she said. Gerald beeped. "Define off. Existentially or metabolically?" They moved deeper. The station's labs were shattered. Glass tanks ruptured. Data cores melted. Strange, root-like growths spread along the walls, pulsing with bioluminescent veins. Gerald scanned them and declared them 95% plant, 3% silicon, 2% bad decisions. In the central chamber they found the source, a containment tank filled with dark fluid, inside which floated a shape, a body vaguely humanoid, with elongated limbs, translucent skin, and long drifting ears. Elia stepped closer. Her visor translated the alien glyphs carved into the tank's base. Project Varela, proto-species acceleration, designed for rapid evolution under extreme stress. Gerald hovered. They tried to force evolution, and didn't wait to see what they got. As she watched, the figure stirred, then opened its eyes. It didn't attack. It simply stared at her. And her ears, her long, delicate ears, twitched just once. Elia whispered, "You're like me." She disabled the containment locks. The tank hissed, the fluid drained, and the creature stumbled out, coughing, blinking, and then saying in a voice that sounded like layered whispers, "Who am I?" Gerald chimed in. "She's a mystery. I'm sarcasm. You're gooey. Welcome to our team." They moved through the station together, evading security drones gone feral, one of which tried to adopt Gerald as its parent. "I'm flattered," he said, "but emotionally unavailable." The alien woman, whom Alia named Vera, learned quickly. Too quickly. Every time they encountered a new threat, she adapted, dodging, countering, predicting. Within hours, she could mimic speech, understand patterns, even hack door panels with a touch. "She's not just evolved," Alia muttered. "She's still evolving." Gerald ran calculations. "She's rewriting her neural code on the fly. If she sneezes wrong, she might invent a new language." By the time they reached the reactor core, overgrown with more of the biomech vines, they understood the truth. The station had created Vera as a prototype for a new species, one designed for survival at all costs. But the experiment spiraled out of control, and the scientists tried to kill her. She survived, alone, in stasis, waiting. "They called her a failure," Alia said, looking around the ruined lab, "because she didn't become what they expected." Vera touched her shoulder. "Neither did you." They rigged the station to self-destruct, not out of drama, but necessity. Whatever tech remained could be used again, and neither of them wanted another Vera turned into a lab rat. As they ran for the skiff, the corridor behind them collapsed. 10 seconds to detonation," Gerald announced. "Please remain calm, or don't. I've stopped judging." They leapt into the ship, disengaged the clamps, and blasted away just as Argonaut Echo tore itself apart in a slow-motion explosion that Keller later described as visually satisfying and emotionally cathartic. Back on coalition grounds, debriefings were long, political, and tedious. Elia gave her report. Vera stood beside her, no longer a specimen, but a person. The coalition wanted to study her. Elia said no. Vera said no louder. Gerald offered a flowchart. Eventually, they let it go. The three of them walked out of the debrief chamber as free agents. Keller waited with a new ship, its name painted hastily in dripping letters. Definitely not illegal. I hear Merc work pays well, he said, and nobody complains when you break things. Vera tilted her head. What's Merc work? Mostly getting paid to do what we already do, Elia said. And that is? Fight, fly, and make authority figures nervous. Gerald spun in a circle. I made a mixtape for our first job. It's mostly retro synth and inspirational screams. Elia looked out at the stars. They looked different now, less like distant, cold specks and more like open doors. She wasn't just a shadow anymore. She had a name, a voice, and a team. The frail alien who once kept her head down now walked tall, unafraid. I used to think strength was about power, she said. Keller raised an eyebrow. And now? Now I know it's about being seen and deciding you're worth looking at. Vera smiled. I think you were always strong. You just forgot. Elia nodded. Then let's remind a few more people. The ship lifted off, leaving behind the past. Ahead of them, trouble awaited. Opportunity beckoned. And somewhere between the stars, someone else underestimated the wrong girl with long ears. Their mistake.